Good morning. So today I'm going. So we will look at id. Id is a personality structure that one is born with. When we are when a child is born, you find that they have a behavior, a pleasure behavior, in that whatever they desire or they need at that particular time, they need it to be satisfied at that particular time. And that explains why when a child is hungry or a child is even uncomfortable, they'll cry and demand to be given food immediately so as to satisfy the id. So the id is inborn. We are born with that behavior, and with time, as people grow, they manage to control the id, because as someone becomes an adult, the id behavior now becomes socially unacceptable. You can imagine an adult who is big and maybe still cries for his attentions to be satisfied immediately. They need it to be satisfied. For example, if someone sees food being sold along the street and he was walking around and probably was hungry, he'll start crying for the food if they are controlled with the id behavior. So that is id personality. Okay, the next is ego personality. And ego, it develops to mediate between the unrealistic id and the real world. So ego works with reason, whereas id is a bit chaotic and unreasonable. And that is why I say that as someone grows, they manage to control id because it is normally socially unacceptable. So the ego operates on the reality principle. And it is because with the ego, we are able to control the id. It's not that the id fades away, no. It is still within us as human beings, but we are able to control it because of the ego. So the ego will eventually allow the behavior of the id, but only in appropriate time and place. For example, I had given an example under id whereby someone is walking along the street and they see food being sold and they start crying for the food if they are controlled by id. But now if there is ego in that adult person, the person will be able to control the id. And instead of crying for food, if they have some money, they'll purchase that food and eat, or they'll just rush home and eat some homemade food. By doing that, the ego have controlled the id, and the person has not behaved in an unacceptable way in the society. So that is the ego, which is also another personality that explains the human behavior. The third element explaining the human personality is the superego. So the superego incorporates the values and morals of society, which we learn from our parents, from the church, from the school, and from other places within the society. So the superego controls the id, and it also persuades the ego to turn to moralistic goals rather than simply realistic ones, and to strive for perfection. So the superego tries to perfect and civilize our behavior. So normally we adapt this superego from the society. We are taught in school that if you cheat in exams, there is punishment. If you steal something, there is punishment. We are taught in church that if you sin, there'll be punishment for that. So we try to be morally upright, and that is why we develop the superego. So it tries to make our behavior to be perfect by trying to suppress the id and trying to improve on the ego and trying to make us our behavior more civilized. So that is superego element, and I'll give an example, still an example on superego, still with the example of the person who was walking along the street. So if the person walking along the street sees food and they have the superego, they'll reason that I cannot cry for food, let me just go on my way, because if I cry or if I go steal that food, then it is not morally upright. So that is the superego controlling the person. So superego tries to perfect our behavior. Okay, so these three elements normally interact so as to influence an individual's overall personality and behavior. So according to Sigmund Freud, the key to a healthy personality is a balance between the id, the ego, and the superego. If you are able to balance these three elements, then you will have a healthy personality. And Freud also believed that if there is an imbalance between these three elements, then the personality of a person will be, of course, affected. And you find that if the id has domained the other two elements, then it can lead to a personality of a person, maybe a person behaving uncontrollably or unreasonably. This person might end up stealing things that are not belonging to them because they want to satisfy their immediate need. They might end up being thieves. Not that they don't have the food maybe at home. They have, but they still want to satisfy their immediate need. And if the ego domains over the other two elements, then according to Freud, it is a healthy personality. And if superego domains, then it can lead to a person who is a perfectionist. A person wants everything to be perfect, people's behavior to be morally upright, and this is a person who will not take any indiscipline case. They'll not understand because they expect people to behave morally upright. And this kind of people are also judgmental. If you do anything bad, they'll judge you. If you sin, they'll judge you because they see themselves to be perfect and everyone should be perfect. So as you can see, these three elements really influence our behavior, and we need to have a balance of the three elements to have a healthy behavior. So that is all on the human personality structure.